Drivers, start your engines. You are now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. and I'm welcoming you to take another lap of the extra mile for today, March 12th, 2020. And it has been a couple of weeks since I got to talk to all of you. Back then, we were talking about, hey, there is a possibility COVID-19 could cause disruption to the season. 2 weeks on, and I think we may have underestimated just how big of a disruption it has been. Before we get into that, let me welcome in my co-host first. You just heard us talk on Not What It Seems. Now we're going to talk racing exclusively here on the Extra Mile. It's Miss Caitlin Seam. Caitlin, welcome.
Hello, Daryl. How's it going?
It's going well. Haven't talked to you in a while. Hope
right,
you're doing
an hour
well.
And a half-ish.
Yep. And that second voice you may have heard, that is our first guest for the evening. This man, we have talked for the last year or so on Twitter. We are a part of the burgeoning NASCAR Twitter fandom that joins together and loves to give each other crap every week of the season. But we love each other, I promise. It is Justin Champagnne at Champagnne Racing on Twitter. Justin, thank you so much for joining us this evening, man. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Of course, and how this ended up happening is Justin was actually looking for some podcasts to join on to and jump on from time to time. So I kind of leaped in there like Shaquille O'Neal, like, join us on Thursdays. And now he is here. And we're going to have some fun here in the first 30 minutes of this program. And, of course, if you want to talk to us during the show, if you're listening, you can hit me up on at DKJr12. Caitlin's at Caitlin Seam and Justin's at Champagnne Racing. You can also talk to us here on Spreaker.com in the chat room. We'll see your comments and read them out. Before we get started into the topics, just want to ask everybody, as usual, how your week was and where were you guys when the sports world shut down?
My week was pretty good. Pretty good week. Just waking up every day and seeing a lot of crazy stuff on the news. So March Madness is done with. NBA shut down. Formula One is over with. They postponed their races. And NASCAR with no fans. So it's pretty crazy this week. It's a hectic week.
Really has been. Caitlin, how's your week been? And how are you surprised by how fast this whole situation has kind of deteriorated?
Yeah, I've had a good week. My best friend lives in Bermuda, and I haven't gotten to see her in a year and a half, and I got to spend the last week with her, so that was a lot of fun. Definitely needed the break. Spent the end of the last week, the beginning of this week, down in Savannah, Georgia for a little getaway, so that was pretty nice. And then, I was actually at a bookstore when the world decided to collapse. I was leaving Barnes & Noble last night when my boyfriend texted me and was like, hey, so the NBA is done. And I was like, wait, what? And it literally just spiraled out of control from there, which we had a lot of fun on my show for the fact that, Daryl, when you came on, we actually got to drop some stuff live as we were going. The XFL decided to cancel everything right during my show. And the NHL decided to cancel right before the show. And it was just crazy. So it has been a wild ride. It was one of those things that I kind of felt like as soon as one of them went, it was going to be a domino effect. And it was. Like, to me, that part I'm not surprised by, because as soon as it's like, oh, hey, no, I feel like the sports world always feels kind of like it's separated from the rest of the world. like things don't tend to qualify. Like, we had talked to is like during World War II, they canceled the Olympics, but American sports continued. We still had baseball. We still did those sports because it was one of those ways that kept people going in a time of uncertainty and unrest. And in this case, we were reminded with everything happening with the Utah Jazz that no, everybody is susceptible to this, including Tom Hanks. So nobody is safe.
No, they're not.
It's one of those crazy things that, it really was a domino effect, and, one falls, they all fall. So I think the funny thing about it is now you're seeing, okay, this is really needing to be taken seriously. Social distancing is important. And then you're seeing everything else get canceled and or postponed to try to help this kind of ebb itself out. So you almost look like you're a dummy pants at this point if you decide to keep going on something.
Yeah.
Kind of like, well, everybody else is canceled to be safe. Why aren't you? And I think that's kind of where, IndyCar and NASCAR are almost getting put under the spotlight, especially for the fact that, Formula One has decided to cancel their race this weekend in Australia. So
yeah,
it's kind of interesting to see, but it did happen very quickly. I mean, you kind of always knew it was, but like, I feel like I've gotten whiplash, and like, I had to run to the store today and there was no hand soap, there was no water, there was no toilet paper. And I was just like, okay, this is a little unsettling. This is a little weird.
Yeah, okay. Everything did kind of just go at 1,000 miles per hour today. But hopefully we can slow down, take a breath, and hopefully everything flows a bit more calmly the next couple of days. Probably not, but we'll see what happens. But before we get into a deeper dive in COVID-19 and what it's done to the racing world, we do need to talk about a race that happened last week, and that was NASCAR at Phoenix. And Justin, Caitlin, the season had a great momentum builder, really from 98% of the Daytona 500 on. The races have been entertaining. People have actually been loving it post-race for a change. Phoenix was the biggest test because of the new package or not really a new package, but they chopped the spoiler off the back of the car after complaints from just about everybody last year about how the short tracks, or whatever you consider Phoenix, and the road courses went. And they went to the smaller spoiler, and it felt like it was a much better race. What did you guys think?
To me, I think it was the greatest race of the year so far. They had a lot of passing. You got behind a guy and you didn't get aero push, as last year. The tall spoilers kind of ruin, short track racing where you get an aero push and, dirty air is terrible. So they cut down the spoilers and, you could race, you could pass, you could catch a guy, loosen a guy up and make a move. And we saw a lot of different leaders, and it was entertaining, to say the least,
Caitlin, what'd you think?
I think my driver finished 32nd. This race was shit.
It was not.
I don't have anything else to add. I was living my high life down in Savannah, Georgia on Sunday. I chose to enjoy time with my best friend, drinking and walking along River Street instead of watching a race. I literally just looked up to see who won the race, which also is shit. So I think this race was shit.
I think that is a theme, because everybody that talked about the race were like, it was good except for the finish, which we'll get to because of who ended up winning the race. But
squinty douchey eyes.
So when you look at the lap leaders of the race, which is where you can kind of see, did one guy dominate it, or was there an ebb and flow, and who was leading the race? And there were 4 different drivers: Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, who all led substantial amount of time in this race. Brad Keselowski led 82. Chase Elliott led the most with 93. Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick, who's always good here, also led in the 60-lap range. So we did have a race where the lead swapped hands several times for significant periods of time, and not one driver dominated like we would have seen if we had the taller spoiler.
Yes.
So it was fun, and one video that I did see that made me think, you know what, maybe these shorter spoilers are good. Barstool Sports, I believe, posted a video where you're looking down what is now the back stretch, and you're seeing the cars come off turn 2, and they are just dragging these things out like Tokyo Drift, trying to get off turn 2, and that's something we have missed. We're seeing that these cars are unstable, and you actually had to drive them, which was actually very fun to see.
Very fun. I think the traction compound, that, made the race better too, in my opinion, because we had different lines, different grooves. Some people go on the bottom, some people go on the high side, and then traction compound, and it made for some great racing.
Do you think that the lower downforce package actually helped to where they could actually use that traction compound? Because it felt like last year when they put it down, they did not really use it except for coming off the corner in turn 4 and turn 2. But we saw during this race, as they got later into the run, they moved up, and some drivers were finding some grip in that groove about 15, 20 laps in, now that the tires are actually giving some give up.
Yeah, I think that the smaller spoiler definitely did play an impact. Because you need grip. With these cars, you have a small spoiler, and it's hard to handle. So, they're going to find any grip they can.
Taryn just joined us in the chat. You may have just heard him. He was actually in the chat as well during Not What It Seems. It basically says that the coronavirus needs to GTFO. I will agree with that completely, Taryn, because we have things to do and races to see. Hopefully we'll get to see some of those later on. But poor Ryan Blaney. Poor Ryan Blaney. Guys, he's run so well this year, but bad luck in these races keeps running into where he keeps having these poor finishes. This week, gets collected in an incident with Denny Hamlin and gets taken out before stage 1. I mean, he's got the speed. What does the kid got to do to find some luck?
Well, are we explicit on this show or no?
Go for it.
I wasn't prepared for you to actually let me get away with it, Daryl.
I'll just go for it. I'll fix it later. I'll put the tag on later.
I'm just saying you gotta, be careful where I think he's a little distracted from what I've heard. And you gotta put your focus on not things other than a car. Mm-hmm. Focus on the car. Focus on the driving. And maybe cut your goddamn hair.
You don't like the hair?
This little mock mullet thing? No. What is this, 1972?
I mean, he's trying to get some classic mojo going.
He's trying to get something, I'm sure.
Hasn't really worked, though, but Justin, what do you think he's got to do? I mean, he was running well at Las Vegas, and they decided to pit, finished 11th, had an issue at Auto Club, and then this week, the team has had the speed, but they haven't had the finishes to show it, and I think he's been one of the best drivers since Penske changed up basically everything at the shop.
Blue Chiefs. Yeah. I don't know. Ryan Blaney, like you said, he's fast. When you have bad luck, you have bad luck. So he needs something. Yeah. He needs a voodoo or something like that.
He needs to go find the golden horseshoe Jimmy Johnson once had. Or maybe have found again. And speaking of drivers with bad luck, the Toyota camp has not been as strong as it has in recent years. Martin Truex Jr. ends up crashing out, finishes 32nd. Yeah. Caitlin, I know you're upset about this. He's another one of those drivers where, okay, they got the speed, but they don't have the finishes.
Look, if Martin Truex Jr. didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. That's just the only way it goes. And people, I think the funny part about it is that people don't quite understand the bad luck level of Martin Truex Jr. because he fought his ass off to win that championship. It's been rough. We've gone through a lot.
There was a seat.
But it sucks, and it's driving me mad. What the actual hell? Cole Pern, we need you back as soon as possible. Please.
I don't know. Retired Cole Pern is kind of the best part of NASCAR Twitter right now.
He's a happy Cole Pern, though. Like, I hate it, but he is a happy man. It's all those naps he's getting during the race. He's a beautiful creature, and he should be protected, but I miss him.
Yep. Now, Justin, what do you think he's got to do? Because I don't think Cole Pern leaving has cost that team any speed. It's just Martin's been on the other side of some unfortunate racers' luck.
Yeah, they've been fast this year, too. Like at Las Vegas, him and I believe Chase Elliott, they were like the class of the field.
Yeah, they were.
Until like bad luck. So just like Ryan Blaney, when you have bad luck, you have bad luck. So those two are the most bad luck out of everybody.
If those two had much better luck, they'd be the class of the field right now. And
definitely
the one team that has been the class of the field, even though they've only won one race, this team's been back on the rise. Hendrick Motorsports. Mm-hmm. William Byron finished 10th. Chase Elliott, as I said, led 93 laps, finished 7th. They had a couple of cars finish in the top 10. They're starting to run well again. They're not back to when they were killing the field levels, but it feels like Hendrick Motorsports and the Chevy camp in general has just looked so much better than they did the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. Yeah. I think they finally found speed. You know, we had last year where people didn't know what to think about the package. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we been to different races and tracks multiple times, so I think they just found speed and picked up something to be better.
One thing I do think that has helped is they made the nose softer so it's not as pointed. Yeah. And that may be helping them get through the air just a little bit better because those cars are fast.
They're really good.
And as a Chevy fan like myself, I want those cars to be fast. So
yeah.
They're running well. The top 5 from Phoenix was Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, who led 2 laps there late, and Clint Bowyer finishing in the top 5. We'll take our first look of the season at where we are in the points. We will go by the official actual count instead of the playoff format instead of the playoff rankings because we are nowhere near playoffs, so we don't need to be showing that just yet. Kevin Harvick currently leads by 1 point over Joey Logano, 20 over Chase Elliott. Alex Bowman and Jimmy Johnson round out the top 5. 6 through 10 in the points. Ryan Blaney, despite the last couple of weeks, he is in the top 10 in points. He's 41 points back of the leader. Kyle Larson and Eric Almirola are tied for 7th. Matt DiBenedetto and Brad Keselowski round out the top 10. So, we're on our way to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Maybe. And this is where Mr. COVID-19 pops up because this week, not only will fans not be allowed to attend, there will basically be no face-to-face interviews at Atlanta Motor Speedway and at Homestead Miami Speedway next week. They're basically going to teleconference all of the interviews that they are going to do during the weekend. This is going to be surreal, but Justin, you had a take on this, and I'm going to let you say this one on air. I'm not going to steal this one from you.
Man, I don't know.
You said it felt like a certain track was kind of ahead of the curve.
Oh, yeah. What track was that again?
Indy.
Oh, man. Yeah, last year at Indy, that was terrible. So
yeah, every track is going to look like Indy. Hopefully, just to pivot away, I hope Roger Penske can do something for that race because
yeah, they got to do something different.
That is not a good image. But this is a weird situation that this disease has brought on for everyone in the sports world. We just talked about on Not What It Seems. We're going to talk about it here. It's not really the symptoms that are the problem.
Yeah.
It's the incubation time. It's about 14 days, at least 8 of which you are transmitting the disease and don't know it. So one person can have it, be absolutely fine, and go through that garage area, pass it along to everybody, and then we go home and it just becomes a cascading effect. So what they're trying to do by closing all the racetracks and all the sporting events is something they called on TV today, flattening the curve. And there's a great article on CNN about it that you can go and check out. But what they're trying to do is lessen the amount of cases to not overwhelm hospital systems, so that the high point or the maximum amount of cases we have is a lot lower than what it could be, so we can get out of this a lot faster, which is all well and good.
Yeah.
But doesn't make it any less surreal than I'm scrolling and looking at the cascading numbers of series and sports and conference tournaments that are just outright being canceled right now. I mean, the sports world has come to a pause, and I don't know how to describe it other than jarring this weekend, and especially next weekend, when we're not at work trying to sneak peeks at the NCAA nightcaps.
Ironically, I feel like for the first time in forever, I'll be at work. If I get to be at work, we'll see how that goes. We still have a couple days, as in a day. We'll see what happens. But this weekend, I'm going to be like, man, I'm missing out on all of the sporting events. Wait, no, I won't be.
Right, because there's nothing going on.
My DVR is going to be quiet.
Yep. And there's going to be a lot of Netflix watched and a lot of video games played, and people are just going to try to kill time. I mean, you can... Also,
for those listening, reading is also an option, and books are good for you.
Yes. They also have books on tape and tablet.
Save your TV. Read a book.
Yes. And one thing that some people are bringing up, and I'll start with Justin.
Yes.
There's a possibility that IndyCar and NASCAR are going to see a huge rating spike this week. And I know that is the furthest from what we need to be talking about, but they're about to see a big rating spike because they're going to be the only thing on TV this weekend if they continue their seasons.
Yes, that's huge for NASCAR. I wonder if they're making that into consideration. You know, maybe they won't cancel because they want more people to view it. So we might see, man. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, hopefully they can have a race similar to the 79 500 when everybody was snowed in, or maybe have a finish close to what happened in 2001 when Harvick and Gordon were coming down to it, and Gordon almost cemented his legacy as the most hated man in NASCAR. If he had won that race, he would not have been able to get out of that racetrack without a police escort.
What do you think? Why do you think NASCAR hasn't called the weekend yet?
I think
NASCAR.
One of the things
90% of them don't believe in the coronavirus.
If that's to believe by how Twitter went today, yeah, there were some bad takes, but I think it's twofold. One, they will never admit this, but they see a huge gap that can be exploited ratings-wise, and we know this series needs some good juju with ratings over the last couple of years. Second, and I think this is the more important one as far as NASCAR is concerned, trying to reschedule these races was going to be a pain because there aren't that many off weeks in the beginning part of the season. The biggest off weeks are going to be when NBC, as of right now, takes their Olympic break. But I don't think Fox, who's going to be moving, because, you know, the Fox camera crews that work the NASCAR races go off to other projects. I don't think they were going to be able to disperse those groups and then suddenly bring them back just to do these next two races. Also, putting them at the end of the schedule in November was going to be a non-starter for Fox because the NFL is around that time, and NFL takes up a lot of Fox's time, as we know. Also, we're going to Atlanta and we're going to Homestead in December, which for Homestead isn't that bad, but now it's decided it wants to snow in Atlanta sometimes. So there's just a lot that's not in their factor if they try to reschedule. So they just have to go through and cross their fingers if nothing bad happens. But if we get through this weekend and then find out somebody gets hit with a coronavirus, we're done for 2 weeks at least.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And Caitlin told them so.
I think everybody told them so at this point.
True. Don't take away my thunder.
The big questions also from a grassroots level is what are they going to do at the local short tracks with all these announcements that large gatherings cannot take place. I know Hagerstown Speedway is going to be running the last 2 days of open practice this Saturday and next Saturday without fans in the stands, which it's practice. Not that many people were going to come anyway, but it is what it is. Our hold on this is going to be reevaluated on March 27th, which is the day before the first race of the season, which is the Ultimate Northeast Super Late Model Series. Hopefully that race will continue, but if the ban is in place, I don't see that race being run because unlike other series, as we know, local short tracks depend on the gate number to pay everybody at the end of the night. And if they can't allow fans, track ain't going to be able to pay nobody. So there's a good chance we won't have racing on the grassroots level, and that's just here at Hagerstown. We could see some small tracks in some real dire straits if this continues.
Well, I think the way I see it is, at this point, I don't think it's a bad thing if everybody just takes a breather, hits the pause button, and reconvenes in a month. Like, let's just everybody take this as dramatic as it, I don't know, like I said, you can think of it however you want. It's your opinion. Some people think it's a hoax. Some people think it's like the next plague. And then everybody else kind of falls in the middle. But if it's really spreading this bad, and I feel like we really do need to take an example out of Italy's book and what they're going through and just be like, okay, let's just all take a pause. Let's just kind of tighten everything up, slow everything down, and stay away from each other for a hot second. Let's everybody just take a 2-week vacation at the very least here to kind of let this thing, like as I said, flatten the curve, let it calm down. And the thing is, if things are shut down, then you don't have to worry about not paying people because nobody's there.
Exactly.
I mean, yes, people are going to be losing paychecks, but if everybody can work together, and I think really the biggest part that I think that the glaring issue is coming out of this is that the American society is so screwed up at this point in time that we're struggling this hard with it. It really should just be, we're shutting everything down, take a break, work from home if you can't. If you can't work from home, we're going to figure out a way to compensate you anyway. Stay home. Don't do stuff that's stupid. Let's get through this. And then we can move on. And then nothing is really worse for wear. You lose a couple weekends. Okay, so what? But you still can move on, because I feel like the problem right now is that with people dragging their feet, with certain places and people and groups not taking this seriously, I feel like the problem that we're going to have is that instead of crushing this soon, it's going to spread out and it's going to take its time and it's going to grow. They haven't been able to figure out a vaccine for this. Like, it's still causing a lot of troubles. We're still in the early stages. They moved it to a pandemic. You can say anything you want, but shit doesn't get called a pandemic just for no reason. No. Like, it has to go through all these stages. It has to hit all of these marks before it can get to that point, and we hit it. It could be a novelty or it can be not. It could be a government hoax. It could be a CDC hoax. It could be, whatever. But we still have to take it seriously enough to move past it.
And here's how serious.
And I think that's my issue. Like, let's not struggle to say, oh, fans can't go here, and then we got to figure out how we're going to pay our people because we still let the teams in here. Well, then just don't let them come in here. Let's take a break. Work on your car for 2 weeks.
Well, the best thing about practice is nobody gets paid for practice, so that is good for the short tracks. And for the local short tracks, if they can't bring anybody, they're not going to race because they need the money from the fans to actually pay people. So, and this is how. And before we close the segment, this is how big it's getting. The Disney parks, Walt Disney World in Florida, Disneyland in California, Disneyland Paris, all of them are closed beginning this Sunday and lasting to the end of the month. And that place does not shut down often. So that is how big this is getting. But we're coming to the end of this segment. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a blast. Where can they find you on Twitter?
They can find me at Champagnne Racing on Twitter.
All right, Justin, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
You too.
Alrighty.
You too.
All right, and with that being said, we're going to take a break. But while we're doing that, we're going to actually reached out for some comments from some of the fans or some of our people in the iSports Radio / USRN Racing family. And Matt White provided some thoughts on the current situation with coronavirus. So we're going to listen to that with the Nearest the Win update, and we'll have more right after the end of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to the Extra Mile here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports on one of the craziest days in sport we can remember in quite a long time, and not a lot of sport has actually taken place. Here's what we know so far in the motorsports world. This has been recorded at 7:45 UK time, so news probably has changed since I say the next few sentences. IndyCar is on at St. Petersburg. It's going to be run behind closed doors on Sunday afternoon. You can join myself and Matthew Owens on USRN for the call of that race on Sunday. NASCAR is also a go at Atlanta across the weekend with trucks and Xfinity on Saturday and Sunday Cup race, all behind closed doors as well. Rally Mexico has been unaffected, so the WRC race will continue across the weekend. And at point of recording, still no official word what's going on in Australia regarding Formula One and the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship. Next weekend's World Endurance Championship race at Sebring has been cancelled, and the Sebring 12 Hours on Saturday has been moved to November. Add that to what we could have had this weekend, MotoGP in Thailand and Formula E in China. It's a pretty depleted weekend in the world of motorsport this weekend. We have got Nearest the Win, and over the last couple of weeks, points have been scored. 2 points for Darryl. He picked Alex Bowman to win in Fontana, and Matthew Owens got the point for Kevin Harvick finishing second for Phoenix last weekend. So there is Nearest to Win points up for grabs this weekend, and Atlanta in the Cup race at St. Petersburg, the IndyCar Grand Prix, and possibly the Formula One race in Australia if it happens. So Darryl leads the way on 2 points. The World Motorsport League also continues this weekend. Can Scott McLaughlin keep on top of the standings? If Virgin Australia Supercars run, of course, then he will be possibly dropping down. But if they do not run, then he will keep the lead over the weekend. Update on that and update on Nearest to Win on next week's show. But for now, it's back to the guys for more COVID-19 discussion.
Thank you, Matt White, for that update. And guys, please check out the grid rating on Twitter. He does a great job putting that together, ranking just about every motorsport there is, even though right now none of them are actually doing anything because Corona. And we are back here at the Extra Mile here on iSports Radio. Caitlin, and Daryl are here with you, and we've got our second guest of the evening.
It's Christmas.
But it is someone that is very near and dear to our hearts. Recurring guest, recurring co-host, freelance writer,
Not
and one
regurgitating.
I was going to say regurgitating. There we go.
I meant to say recurring. A recurring host and guest and one of our best friends. Lalita Chemello is here once again. Lalita,
Woo!
welcome.
Hello, everyone. And you guys especially, but also our listeners.
Yes.
Hi. I missed you.
I missed you too. Well, I miss you every day because I don't get to see your face, so there's that too. So
very depressing.
I know. Move here already.
I'm working on it.
Yes. We have missed y'all. We missed you so much.
Yes.
This wow. Okay. I'm coming out the break on fire, y'all. Lita,
urge.
Before we get into Formula One and IndyCar, Lita actually got to do something really cool this January, which we were going to talk about back then, but our schedules didn't align. But someone got to go to the Rolex with the help of Porsche.
Yeah, I am. I guess I can talk about it now because it's not so in the can, but I am officially kind of a Porsche favorite at this point to help with some of the motorsport stuff. So they personally asked for me to send me down to Atlanta to test drive their new all-electric Taycan, which, by the way, 750 horsepower with, that's it. I mean, we got to 130 miles per hour. No big deal.
Nice.
Damn.
Not on open roads and highways at all. And we got the Taycan from the Porsche Experience Center, which if you've never been, if you're ever in Atlanta, I highly recommend. Not only is it a beautiful center, but from my experience of the weekend, Porsche is just exceptional with their guests. So we did a road trip from Atlanta to Daytona, where they housed me for the weekend, and I got to treat myself to a weekend of, the Rolex 24. And oh my God, guys, was it the experience of a lifetime.
So what are some of the things they had you doing down there? Because we saw at one point you got to go into the flag stand somehow.
I did. So let's see, what all did we do? I got to do a hot lap around the Daytona, at least the road track. Obviously, it's a good chunk of the oval. Unfortunately, the Porsche 911 we were supposed to go in was broke, so we did the BMW had an extra car, so he got to do the M5. The funnier thing is that they had only so many Porsche people to take through the line, and so he was done after 3 or 4 laps, and you only got 1 lap around. So I asked them, I'm like, would it be okay if we went around another lap? I can't see why not. So sure enough, we get in the car, 1 more lap around.
Nice.
So that was cool. I don't know who. I did get to meet the head of Porsche Motorsports, Mr. Pascal. Absolutely. I just want to point this out. I did get to do a little bit of an interview with him in the last 4 hours before the race was over. And you really want someone like Pascal heading your motorsports program. You can see why Porsche is such a winning brand. The passion behind his projects and what he does, and just he's such a vibrant character. And you're just in awe being able to talk to him about, his programs, how they're doing, what's next, the brand itself. And everybody on their staff is like that. It was, I made so many, I feel like I made friends, but later that night, into the 24, they did take us up, into the flag stand. We could only be up there for about 10-15 minutes max, which, by the way, there is a little elevator that takes you up there. But we don't get to use that. So you're climbing up a ladder. And if you're afraid of heights like me, that is terrifying. So there was a lot of talking myself up and down the ladder. But having all the cars from the Rolex passing under you while you're standing up there is quite the treat. So, it was hands down just an incredible experience. And there is talk of more things to come to work with them, as long as there's still seasons going. So, but yeah, it's an honor to work with Porsche. I'm so thankful that they've enjoyed my writing enough that they want me on and writing more about motorsports, especially Formula E. So, yeah, you guys will have to keep an eye out for that stuff. I did get to write a little recap on the Rolex 24, and that's in this month's issue of the Porsche Panorama magazine. So if you have friends that own Porsches and are part of the Porsche Car Club, you can get a hold of it. Otherwise, you can @ me or message me, and once I get a copy of it, I'd be more than happy to share it with you. I haven't even seen the final article, but it's there. So, yeah. So, yeah, that was awesome, guys.
I definitely want to get my hands on that article when it comes out. And if you're a part of the Porsche Club, definitely check this girl's writing out. She's great. No, seriously, check out Lita's writing. It's awesome. So let's get into the topic today. We're going to roll F1 and IndyCar all into one because we were going to talk about the preview, and we'll get into some of that, but we also have to talk about, unfortunately, COVID-19, because if you were watching Twitter today, there was a saga playing out in Australia where we could not figure out if they were going to run the race or if they weren't, and all this got kicked off after a McLaren F1 team member tested positive for COVID-19. And instead of doing the NBA thing, thank you, Rudy Gobert, and canceling the season right then and there, F1 just continued like everything was normal. The drivers quickly felt like they didn't want to be there. A lot of the teams felt like they didn't want to be there. We get there this morning, fans show up, doors are closed, people are trying to figure out what's going on. They announce on the PA system that fans aren't going to be allowed in. Rumors start breaking that Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel have already jumped into a plane off and have left Australia. Then it finally comes out that the F1 season is not going to start in Australia this year. Lita, could they have played this PR-wise any poorly?
I mean, it's better that they didn't at least cancel it like the day of, but I think man, I had a busy day at work today, so I'm trying to keep up on it in between things, and I'm catching pieces. I see McLaren pulling out. It seemed like every day for the last week, races are getting canceled or postponed or rescheduled. So I'm literally watching all of the things that we've waited months to look forward to just stop. And the F1 one was I think the craziest one. At least like a lot of these, like IndyCar finally is like, we're not going to have we're only going to have essential personnel and drivers this weekend, and you can still watch everything. And you know what, I think that's a good play. All these people around each other all the time, like maybe that's not as bad, and it's not creating such a large population. And I mean, they were succinct on it. They sent out a press release. They were like, we're going to send out more materials regarding it. And then it all kind of filtered into the rest of IndyCar PR, where F1, like, it was like, somebody thought it was canceled. I saw McLaren put out a thing that was pulled out. I did see the Sebastian Vettel and the Kimi Räikkönen were on the plane and already back to Europe, like on their way to Europe. Actually, I didn't even know that the Australian Grand Prix was actually canceled until Caitlin texted me this evening. Like, it's just, and even that was like, it's just announced. Which, if I remember rightly, them being so ahead, in all honesty, things should be starting like tonight, right? Or tomorrow morning. So why?
Yeah, they had fans at the gates waiting to get in.
Yeah, first practice would actually be going right now, just for context.
That's what I thought. So that's how off schedule I am on all this stuff, guys, right now. So it's just, I was even having this conversation in the car today, like, why are we deciding the weekend of, when we know that this is an issue? We know that, especially, I mean, IndyCar's maybe not as bad, but F1, you have people travel from all over the world. Like I've been, when I went to Montreal, it was incredible the diversity that was there. And it wasn't the Canadians. It was how many people came from all over to go to that race, because F1 fans, like, especially if they have the money for it, which a lot of them do, they'll go to all of them, or they'll go to a lot of them. The Australian Grand Prix, the beginning of the season, you have international everything. Why are we deciding this literally the day of the start of everything? You have your fans lined up, you know they're hardcore fans. Like, I the only way it could have been worse is if they actually walked them through the gates and were like, actually, on second thought, no.
Can you please turn around?
Well, there was...
You just see a bunch of people in hazmat suits running after you.
Yeah, there was on Twitter a breakdown of how this happened, and basically 5 teams voted no. The Mercedes teams originally were going to race, and then the Daimler group actually stepped in and said, yeah, we're not, you guys are not racing, so no. And after that, so none of those cars were racing. The only teams that wanted to still continue the race, Red Bull and AlphaTauri, which that team is what used to be Toro Rosso. Could you guys have seen Formula One on the heels of recent memory of the Indy debacle of 2005, running this race with no fans and 4 cars on the grid?
No. I mean, I think F1 would be stubborn enough to do it.
Oh, 100%.
But I honestly... Yeah, I think that I want to say that Liberty Media and Live Nation is a little smarter about those types of things. So maybe they were a little more reasonable on being like, oh, hey, yeah, we shouldn't do that. That's a bad idea.
No. It felt...
The last minute thing is still kind of irksome.
Well, from what it sounds like, there were legal matters. Lawyers had to talk to lawyers, which may have been holding everything up, but at least the right decision has been made. Australia, not going to run. The next race is Bahrain, where COVID-19...
Which has been announced that it's already going to be closed circuit if they run it.
Yeah, if they race, as Caitlin said, not going to have anybody there, but do you envision a scenario where that race runs, given that Australia did not run? Because, yeah, Bahrain, it's closed circuit. You still got to fly in, and there's still a chance you could pick up the disease on your way to the racetrack. So, do you guys envision a scenario where we race?
For that one? The date for that one. We'll start there, and then I'll plug in my point here in a second.
I looked it up. 10 days.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, the cookies thing was in my way. Continue.
Here's the interesting thing, though, is Italy is under quarantine. So let's talk about some of our Ferrari-based teams, aside from just Ferrari. I mean, yes, a lot of them do have a home in the UK, but you're still going to have personnel coming from Italy. So we have quarantine.
But I don't think they can anymore, right? Because I didn't think that they were letting anybody in or out of the country now.
No, they are. I think they're still allowed to travel. It's just not recommended. Yes. I mean, maybe the teams will be smart enough to not let anybody in that region travel. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we saw the NBA final was just like, we're just not going to do it yet. We'll wait this out a little bit. I don't know, but the race calendars, you can only reschedule so much stuff, and there's a lot of things getting kicked back to November. I'm waiting for November to be super racing season.
It's kind of where we're going.
Yeah, it is. The hardest is going to be the street races, because we know that IndyCar, they just lost the Grand Prix, Long Beach Grand Prix. They're going to try to reschedule that, but that requires shutting down the roads a month in advance. there's a lot of logistics that still need to be worked out with all these postponements that it's just going to be a nightmare at this point. And some leagues have decided we're just not going to deal with it and just cancel it altogether, which, contrary to what some people think, is probably the right decision if that's how they feel.
I think we just need to call a mulligan on 2020 as a whole.
Yeah, can we get a redo on the start of this year?
You know, the funny thing is, it's like 2020, like I started this year and I'm like, it's going to be a good year because I got flown. I did get sick, but through my like influenza A thing that I had, like headed down to Daytona and doing all of that, like, you know, I was like, all right, this could be awesome. We've got racing season. Like, I've got to go to a race. It's going to be a good year. I'm going to make sure this is a great year. Yeah. Damn it.
It's just not working out for us right now at all.
No. So, yeah, I'm kind of afraid to see what happens. I know, and the other thing, so I know we're talking about Formula One and IndyCar, but you guys know I follow Formula E too, and like they've pulled out of China. That might get rescheduled, but I'm highly doubting it. Jakarta, which is like, I want to say in like June, they canceled that because of the coronavirus too. So I'm watching the small Formula E calendar that's, you know, short enough as it is, already dwindling. And I am supposed to go to the New York one with Porsche here in July, and I'm not seeing that happen. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be a weird season if they continue.
If a season.
If we finish seasons at this point. So.
Well, we have to start them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we get them started, which MotoGP yet to start, Formula One yet to start, IndyCar hopefully is going to start. As we transition over into IndyCar, that's going to be a wild St. Pete with nobody in it. Not that you could really see the crowd at St. Pete from how the track is set up and the cameras and everything, but it's still going to be weird to know that nobody is there. And as we go into the season,
weirdly apocalyptic.
It really is.
Like it already does in areas. It's funky.
But the good thing, and the funny thing is, IndyCar started off with such a high note with Roger Penske taking over. And Lita, we saw that at the beginning of the season, and he's already starting to go to work and making this, you know, a much better experience and growing the brand. What do you see for IndyCar's future under Roger Penske?
You know, I was a little hesitant on being too excited about it, only because the one thing I always had in question was, you know, Penske does have a team. It is a top team. And not to say that would be the issue, but if you have somebody leading the organization in the series, you can't help but wonder where there's going to be a conflict of interest in that. Which, you know, but Penske has never been that kind of individual. So, you know, it's reassuring having him go, you know, that's not going to be a problem. Rest assured, this is for his aim is for the betterment of IndyCar. And, you know, in honesty, for me, it's a hope for the back to the glory days before the split. Which we're not going to get into that tonight.
It feels like we're getting back there, though, to the pre-split heyday.
I mean, the attendances are going up for all the races. The attention is really getting out there. I think with having someone like Rossi coming over from Formula One, who's really making a name for himself, we have our American hero, you know, Joseph Newgarden, you know, Caitlin's pretty boy. There it is. I was like, I'm waiting for her to giggle at that. You know, Joseph Newgarden is our All-American boy that's like doing great out there. Simon Pagenaud comes up from nowhere and does fantastic last year. I don't know. But, you know, there's always a different story. There's always somebody new and next that's competing. We have all these really talented drivers. McLaren is making a comeback, which I'll be fair on this one. I'm a little disappointed in McLaren's choice for drivers. Not that they are not bad drivers, but the fact that that Hinchcliffe got the boot was a little bit of a bummer.
What was your
doesn't
feeling
compromise.
on what happened with Hinchcliffe? Because everyone just assumed that he was going to run there, and then come to find out they did not pick him.
Well, the thing was, it wasn't an assumption. Like Hinchcliffe and I'm trying to remember who was on his team. Wasn't it Erickson? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who got snapped up by Ganassi, which I'm a little bummed about. It's good for him, but also, like, you guys know how I feel about Ganassi. So, that they were both working with McLaren. There was talk about, they were excited to be working with McLaren and moving forward with the team and stuff like that. Like, there were announcements. Those guys were working with them. It wasn't not a thing. And then it seemed like we all got, like, backhanded real fast, like his super bad whiplash. And they're like, actually, Hinch and Erickson are gone. And it was like a skew, and it's going to take me forever to remember who the other guy is right now, because that's just where I'm at, guys. I'm sorry. Oh, Pat O'Ward. Both very talented drivers, both from European series. However, again, they were set up with something. Hinch is a good driver, and it just seemed like I was so disappointed. Like, I love McLaren, I love the history behind it, but some of the stuff in the last couple of years that they've decided is just kind of like, what were you thinking? It's a little hard to be on the McLaren, the McLaren bandwagon lately.
Yeah, they have definitely not befriended themselves to a lot of people in IndyCar on their return, especially with how they handled the Formula One qualifying last year and the debacle that was. Hopefully they get the right shade of orange this time.
I mean, the only great thing I think that's coming out of that, and I wish I would have had some more time to read more on it, is Alonso partnering back up with McLaren for the Indy 500. I just hope they don't screw it up.
And that was a surprise, because he was supposed to be going over to Andretti, and then Honda came in and said, yeah, no. Do you think...
Nobody should have been surprised by that.
Yeah.
Like, nobody, because the only reason Honda got booted the way they did was Fernando Alonso. We all know that. That's because he was not driving a good car. He was frustrated. He probably talked to Zach Brown and talked his ear off about it. And so Zach Brown took care of it, which meant a very ugly public dumping of Honda.
That was a nasty split.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So you can't, like, everybody's like, oh, no, like, you got booted by Honda. And it's like, where were you like 2 years ago when this all... Okay.
I'm telling you, that GP2 engine comment did not go over well. Just going to throw that out there.
And I'm not saying Honda engines are bad, because I think they're doing fairly well, especially the Red Bull. Talk about a season of dumping engines. Man, that was just a brutal year. Because that was when Honda dumped Renault as well. So it was just like a little round robin of just awful.
So many divorces that season, and all of it was chronicalized in F1 Drive to Survive.
And and the other one that I don't think not everybody might know, but there is one on Amazon that they do. It was the last season that was it the last season Alonso was on the team? Yeah. And they had dumped Honda, so they were talking about the Renault, but it was like Grand Prix driver. No, I can't remember. It's on Amazon, though. Amazon Prime. And it's really funny because it came out after the F1 season, so they're all like happy and promising and like excited about the year, and you know exactly how that season ends. at the bottom. But the interesting thing I will point out from that
Some people like the bottom.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
She hadn't gotten one. She's been very, very well behaved.
Caitlin has been very good this season, actually. Was waiting for one of those.
So what I was gonna say. So
I'm sorry. Continue.
No, you're fine. One thing I will say though that was really interesting about that series, and there's only like 6 episodes, so it's a lot shorter than Drive to Survive. But what I found most fascinating is, so it's coming down to crunch time before they're doing testing for the cars, and Honda has flown the engines out, and they're at the McLaren Technology Center, and they're trying to put it together. McLaren's designed all the body and all the work and everything with it, all the drivetrain and everything that needs to go with this engine. Honda brings the engine, it doesn't fit in the car. So now they have to refabricate some of the body to get the engine to fit in the car properly. And if that wasn't such a good example of how disassociative those two parties were in that union, I don't know what is. But if you really want to know, and I honestly believed this watching it, if you really want to understand what happened between those two, it was a fact of they didn't work together. Like,
no, they didn't.
You know, you want to design a good car, you better know the exact size and specifications of that engine, and you better be making contact with your people to make sure all of that componentry is going to fit together. And they completely, like, you watch them try to go, and it's like, oh no, this isn't going to work. So now they're scrambling to refit all the bodywork and stuff and get it so that the engine will fit into the car that they designed. And they're like, well, there's your problem. Like, right there, you didn't design anything for the engine you were being provided. Yeah, you can build a great car, but if you can't move it, what's the point?
Yeah, they really should have gotten together and talked about the dimensions of that. Hopefully everything goes a lot smoother for them in IndyCar, which it should, as they're partnered with Schmidt-Peterson, who was made... I liked that team. They have made several employee choices that I have found interesting. One of them we're not going to talk about because then we will be here for another hour. So we're just going to move on from there. And look at the upcoming IndyCar season, and a lot of the old school IndyCar reporters, the Robin Millers of the world, have said IndyCar has needed the great American rivalry. They need 2 American drivers going at it. They need 2 American drivers battling for the championship for this series to really get going. Well, they got it with Newgarden and Rossi. Rossi was on a charge last season, couldn't get it done. Does Rossi pick up a championship this season? And if it is Newgarden and Rossi again, how is that going to help draw eyes of the casual viewers onto this sport?
I mean, I think right there, that's what's going to draw the eyes. You have 2 fantastic American drivers, both with a little bit of, I think Newgarden's had some F1 background too, not actually in, but maybe some training and stuff. You have these 2, and you've got kind of the bad boy Rossi, who's a little off kilter, and then you've got, the golden boy of it all. And we started seeing the rivalry start to come out in the 2018 season. The 2019 season was I loved the 2019 season. I really think, and the nice part was, it wasn't just that rivalry. You still had people like Dixon up there, who's well-seasoned, a decade older than these guys, like giving them a run for their money. You have Pagenaud that goes from 0 to hero within a month and sweeps the entire month of May, which now Joseph Newgarden has to try to do that this year. See if he can do it. But, Rossi we got to see a different kind of Rossi develop in the last couple seasons. And he's hungry for it, and he still hasn't got it. And Andretti has such a great outfit, and you have, Newgarden coming out of a championship season. guys, it's going to be amazing. And I honestly think that rivalry alone is fantastic. But again, and I've hammered this for years on this show, and everybody knows this, is the one thing that's fantastic about IndyCar is you don't know who's going to win that race. You can have favorites, you can predict, except for maybe the IndyCar Grand Prix, which has gone between Will Power and Simon Pagenaud since its inception. So if somebody else could win that would be great, just to liven it up a little bit on the wall, because all you see is their faces down in the museum now.
That'd be nice if someone else could actually, win that race. Because, the rest of y'all are here running this race. Could one of y'all try to, win it, please?
Maybe. To be fair, it is kind of a boring race, so I feel like once you get set, it's kind of there. Although it did get kind of interesting at the end. But, you've had Bourdais win the beginning of the season, and then you throw in, we've had a Graham Rahal come out of nowhere. We had Colton Herta win and become the youngest winning IndyCar driver. The playing field is there is some royalty to the racing hierarchy, definitely the Andretti and the Penske, and maybe we could throw in Ganassi, but that's mostly Scott Dixon. It's not, Ganassi does provide a great car, but guys, it's Scott Dixon. Come on.
Yeah. How much do you think Dixon has in the tank at this point?
I'm going to say probably a few more years, in all honesty. Look at Tony Kanaan, but Kanaan wasn't winning like Dixon has been. So, which, by the way, everybody, this is Tony Kanaan's last season, and he's only driving select races this year. So make sure you keep an eye out for that, especially if you are a Tony Kanaan fan. It is going to be a little weird not seeing him. I'm not going to lie. But anyways, the point being that in the majority of the races, you never know who's going to come out on top. And I think that's the one thing that sets IndyCar apart from any of the other series, especially open wheel series. Although Formula E is also doing somewhat similar, but
Formula E is just insanity.
Over Formula One. Formula E is crazy.
Yeah, Formula E is just insanity for 45 minutes plus a lap.
Hey, it is amazing insanity and also kind of funny, but it's great. Yeah. I love it. But people are like, "Oh, did you watch the Formula One race?" I really haven't been watching them. Most of the stuff that I saw for last season was through Drive to Survive, because I just gave up on watching it because I was like, it's not fun anymore for me. It's just, I've slogged through them for so long. There's no more fun for it. But IndyCar, and I always know I'm going to watch something interesting. So I'm going to just say, hold on to your hats. And if you're going to place some bets, definitely place them on Newgarden and Rossi. But, there's some fantastic drivers that are on there this year. So it is including the return of Connor Daly. So
yes, Connor Daly returns.
So it's all going uphill from here. So I think Penske being in charge of everything, you cannot have a better person, a more passionate individual for the sport than Roger Penske. And I think having someone with that kind of passion, especially for Indianapolis Motor Speedway too, we're going to see some great things going forward, I think. And that alone should also be something to kind of keep your eyes out for. There's going to be some cool things, I think, ahead. It's just a matter of when they can get everything orchestrated and make it happen.
And with that being said, I'm excited as well, and thank you, Lita, for joining us this evening. Do not be a stranger to this open wheel season. We'll definitely have you on a couple more times this season. Have one. Yeah, once we get started. Hopefully we get started this week. The first couple of races of the season for IndyCar will be, and this is a good thing to go over at this point because there is a change to this. We will race in St. Pete without fans. We then go to the Honda Grand Prix of Alabama, which is at this point supposed to run as normal. There is no Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach on April 19th. That race may be rescheduled. How? I don't know. And then we go to the Autobahn IndyCar Challenge in COTA on April 26th. We'll see if that race takes place because the MotoGP event there was canceled. Hopefully we will race at COTA and then the GMR Grand Prix at Indy to take us into the month of May.
Correction. MotoGP was not canceled.
Or
it
not
was rescheduled and will be running November 13th through the 15th at COTA as far as it stands right now.
Yeah, it wasn't canceled, but it was moved from its date. My apologies. But that race has been postponed. We will see what happens with IndyCar and COTA when they get there. Maybe they should be able to run. The big problem with MotoGP, much like Formula One, is you have people coming from literally everywhere. Whereas in IndyCar, it's more centralized in this country, but it's starting to get more of a international base. But we will see what happens in a couple of weeks. But Lita, thank you so much for joining us. We do have picks we have to make before we get out of here for Atlanta and St. Pete here in Nearest the Win. Remember, if you want to play Nearest the Win as well, make sure to tweet out who you want to win. Hashtag Nearest the Win. 2 points for victory. 1 point if you have the highest finishing driver if we don't end up jinxing the winner. And who do I have going in this week? Well, I think the driver that is going to strike first this weekend will be Will Power. Lita, who you got?
Oh, man. St. Pete. Oh, it's always a good one. You know what? I'm actually going to throw this to Rossi. He had a pretty good run for it a few years back. He always seems to be coming back for more. And so I'm going to start off with my fellow Italian-American, Mr. Alexander Rossi.
Caitlin, who you got?
Corona.
Had somebody tell me he had the vodka virus the other day. I was
Nice.
like, wow.
Maybe it won't happen and Corona wins. It's the first race of the year. How do I not go with my almost lover? I have to.
And so the rivalry begins, Caitlin.
For everyone listening and slightly confused, she's going with Newgarden this week. So NASCAR in it.
Joseph Newgarden.
Yes.
Joseph Newgarden. There we go.
Yep. Atlanta, I'm going with the hometown
I
kid.
ignore the fact that he's married.
Wait, he is?
Yeah.
I missed that. I'll look that up
You
later.
have so much to catch up on.
Trust me, I bought black roses and put them on the ground in sorrow.
So in Atlanta, I'm going to take the hometown boy. Chase Elliott gets it done in front of a crowd of nobody. Caitlin, who you got?
Do you think that the winner will still get out of the car and do his old thing since there's no car people cheering?
I don't think
so.
so.
It would be in front of a crowd of one because there will have to be somebody in the flag stand.
Yeah,
but it's also more of an FU to all the other drivers because who are you doing it for at that point?
Also, the guy with the steady cam that has to run up and get the circle shot of the car. So be an audience of two at least.
De Benedetto.
Really? He's been running well at the start of this season, so I hope he does well.
Shows up.
Yeah. Lita, do you want to make a NASCAR pick?
I think Corona wins again.
Corona wins again. I feel like that would be a better guess for me than anything else.
Wait, I want to know this though. Since I picked Corona first for both of them, if they get suspended, these races don't happen. Do I get the 2 points?
I will let Matt White discuss that one. I'll let Matt figure that out because I have no idea.
I pick up the Corona. I see you a line.
Oh, Caitlin, no.
And on that
my
note,
bartender jokes are strong.
And on that note, we're going to get ready to get out of here. Remember, check out Not What It Seems. It comes on right before this. check out Lita's article when it hits the Porsche Club magazine. Thank you all for listening this evening. This has been the Extra Mile. Remember to follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also check out the website as well. And one more thing before we go, if you want to catch up on any shows you may have missed, check them out on SoundCloud, YouTube, Twitter, The Spreaker Show Reel, and any other places where podcasts can be heard. Check out my writings on WBGR Network as well, WBGRnetwork.com. And with that being said, this has been the Extra Mile, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody. As long as it doesn't get interrupted by coronavirus.